Jake Mitchell stepped off the transport ship and looked around. His mouth fell open. Harmony Station was huge. The main hall stretched out like a football field. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it. Strange lights floated in the air, without any wires. Different colored gases swirled around in glass tubes along the walls. But the weirdest part was not the station. It was the aliens. Jake had seen pictures before. He had studied them in training. But seeing real aliens up close was different. Very different. A group of tall blue creatures with 6 arms walked past him. Their skin looked like smooth metal. Behind them, something that looked like a giant jellyfish floated through the air. It glowed purple and made soft humming sounds. Jake tried not to stare. His training officer had been very clear about that. Don't stare at the aliens, Mitchell. It's rude, just act normal. Right. Act normal. How was he supposed to act normal when nothing about this place was normal? Commander Mitchell? A voice called out. Jake turned around. A human woman walked toward him. She had short brown hair and wore a blue uniform with lots of badges. She looked important. Yes, that's me, Jake said. I'm Captain Amy Foster. Welcome. To Harmony Station. She shook his hand. How was your trip? Long, Jake said. But amazing. I've never seen so many different ships in one place. Captain Foster smiled. Wait until you see the conference room. We have 12 different species here right now, all working together for peace talks. They walked through the station. Jake tried to take everything in. The walls were covered with symbols he didn't understand. Some looked like pictures. Others looked like math. A few looked like someone had sneezed on the wall. That's Zephyrian writing, Captain Foster said, following his eyes. They don't use letters like we do, they use smell patterns. Smell patterns? They're made of gas. They talk by changing their chemical makeup. It's actually quite elegant. Jake nodded like he understood. He didn't. They passed more aliens. A group of small furry creatures that looked like teddy bears sat around a table. They were playing some kind of card game. One of them saw Jake looking and waved all 4 of its hands at him. The Corlin, Captain Foster explained, sweetest beings in the galaxy, also the best engineers. They built most of this station. Jake waved back. The Corlin chittered happily. They entered a large room with a curved table. Aliens sat all around it. Jake recognized some from his training. Others were completely new. Everyone, Captain Foster said loudly. This is Commander Jake Mitchell. He's our new human liaison officer. All eyes turned to Jake. Well, not all eyes. Some of the aliens didn't have eyes, but they all focused on him somehow. Jake cleared his throat. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I look forward to working with all of you. A creature that looked like a walking tree made a deep, rumbling sound. Another alien covered in crystals chimed like wind bells. Jake hoped these were good sounds. Let me introduce you to everyone, Captain Foster said. They went around the table. There was Ambassador Queel from the Mindari Collective. He looked human except for his completely black eyes and the fact that his head was twice the normal size. Jake tried not to think too hard around him. Mindari could read thoughts. Next was Commander Zack from the Corvin Empire. He looked like a lizard that had learned to walk on 2 legs and started wearing armor. He nodded at Jake with respect. Then came Captain Yellow of the Zephyrian Cloud Fleet. She was hard to see clearly since she was made of constantly moving purple gas. But she made pleasant humming sounds when introduced. Finally, they reached the far end of the table. A massive creature sat there. She was easily 8 feet tall, 4 arms, dark blue skin that looked like it was covered in natural armor plates. Her head was large and angular with bright orange eyes. And this is Sub-Commander Zix Thera of the Valkyrian Defense Corps, Captain Foster said. Zix Thera stood up. She was even bigger standing. Jake had to look up to meet her eyes. Commander Mitchell, she said. Her voice was deep and precise. Every word was perfectly pronounced. I have studied human military records. Your species has an interesting approach to conflict resolution. Thank you, Jake said. Then, because he was nervous and because that's what humans do when they're nervous, He tried to make a joke. Well, we try our best. Nice to meet you. I have to say, you've got some impressive rear architecture there. The room went completely silent. Jake realized what he had just said. His face turned red. He had just commented on an alien's butt. On his first day. At a peace conference, Captain Foster's eyes went wide. Ambassador Queel's telepathic abilities probably picked up Jake's panic. Commander Zach's lizard face showed confusion. The crystal alien stopped chiming, but it was Zixithera's reaction that worried Jake the most. She didn't move. She just stared at him with those bright orange eyes. Her forearms hung at her sides. Jake couldn't tell if she was angry, confused, or planning to tear him apart. Jake started to say. Zixithera raised one of her hands. Please explain this comment, Commander Mitchell. Jake's mouth felt dry. He looked around the room. Every alien was watching him. Waiting. He had been on Harmony Station for exactly 27 minutes, and he might have just ruined everything. Jake stood frozen. The silence in the room felt heavy. He could hear his own heartbeat. Somewhere in the station, a machine hummed quietly, but in the conference room, nobody moved. Zixithera's orange eyes stared at him. Her forearms remained perfectly still. Jake had no idea what she was thinking. Her face didn't show any emotion he could understand. Well, she said, I am waiting for your explanation. Captain Foster stepped forward quickly. Sub-Commander? I think there's been a misunderstanding. Commander Mitchell is new to interspecies protocol. He didn't mean anything inappropriate. Inappropriate? Zixithera tilted her large head. I do not understand this word in this context. Jake felt sweat on his forehead. I was trying to be friendly. In human culture, sometimes we give compliments to break the ice, make people feel comfortable. Break the ice? The crystal alien chimed in confusion. There is no ice here. The station maintains optimal temperature. Ambassador Queel's black eyes focused on Jake. I am reading significant distress from the human's mind. He genuinely intended no offense. But what did he mean? Commander Zach asked. His lizard tongue flicked out briefly. What is rear architecture? Captain Foster looked like she wanted to disappear. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No, Zixithera said firmly. This happened in public. It should be explained in public. Jake took a deep breath. There was no way out of this. I was commenting on your posterior section. In human terms, I was saying you have a nice behind. The room erupted in different sounds. The Corlin delegates chittered loudly. The Zephyrian captain's purple gas swirled faster. Commander Zach made a hissing sound. The crystal beings chimed like broken bells. Zixithera's forearms suddenly moved. She crossed them over her chest in what looked like a defensive position. You commented on my reproductive and combat architecture? Reproductive? Jake's voice cracked. Combat? Captain Foster grabbed Jake's arm. Commander, perhaps we should... In Valkyrian culture, Zixithera continued, her voice getting deeper, the posterior section serves multiple critical functions. It houses our primary reproductive organs. It contains our balance center for combat. It displays our genetic fitness to potential mates. It is the most private and personal part of our anatomy. Jake felt his stomach drop. Oh no. Oh no. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. But Zixithera wasn't finished. When a Valkyrian comments on another's posterior architecture, it means one of three things. First, a formal mating proposal. Second, a challenge to single combat. Third, a grave insult questioning their genetic worth. The other aliens were watching this like it was the most interesting thing they'd ever seen. Jake noticed that some of them were taking notes. Which did you intend, Commander Mitchell? Zixithera asked. None of them, Jake said quickly. Absolutely none of them. In human culture, it just means I think you look strong and impressive. That's all. Ambassador Queel leaned forward. Fascinating. Humans comment on physical attributes as a form of social bonding. It's called a compliment, Captain Foster explained weakly. Humans give compliments to show appreciation or to make others feel good. But why the posterior specifically? Commander Zack asked. Why not comment on her weapons or her rank insignia? Jake felt his face getting redder. Because humans sometimes focus on physical attributes that we find attractive or impressive. Attractive. Zixthara's voice rose slightly. You find my combat and reproductive architecture attractive? Not in a romantic way, Jake said desperately. Just in a... You know what? I'm making this worse. I apologize. I'm clearly terrible at interspecies communication. The Corlin delegates chittered among themselves. One of them spoke up in a squeaky voice. In our culture, we comment on fur quality. Is this similar? No, said Captain Yellow, her gas form shimmering. Zephyrians share scent signatures for bonding. Physical appearance is irrelevant to us. Crystalline beings appreciate harmonic resonance, added one of the crystal aliens. We do not understand this physical attraction concept. Jake wanted to sink through the floor. Look, I messed up, I know that now. I was just trying to be friendly. In human culture, sometimes we say nice things about how people look. It's supposed to make them feel good. But you specifically chose the most intimate part of Valkyrian anatomy, Zixithara pointed out. I didn't know it was intimate. To humans, it's just part of how someone looks, like saying someone has nice hair or good posture. Ambassador Queel's large head tilted. I am detecting genuine confusion and regret from the human. His species appears to have very different social protocols. This is a disaster, Captain Foster muttered. Commander Zack hissed thoughtfully. Perhaps we should study these human protocols more carefully. This could be important for future diplomatic contact. Study them? Jake asked. Yes, Zixithara said. She had been quiet for a moment, but now she looked directly at Jake again. I wish to understand human social bonding rituals. You say this was intended as a compliment. Yes, a really awkward, inappropriate compliment that I should never have made. And humans give these compliments to create social bonds? Sometimes. When done right. Which this definitely wasn't. Zixthara's forearms uncrossed. She seemed to be thinking deeply. Captain Foster, I require access to your human cultural database. Of course, Sub-Commander. But why? If humans use verbal appreciation of physical attributes as social bonding, then I must learn this protocol. Zixithara's orange eyes fixed on Jake again. Commander Mitchell has initiated a cultural exchange. I intend to respond appropriately. Jake didn't like the sound of that. Respond how? I will study human customs. Then I will provide you with an appropriate response to your compliment. That's really not necessary. Oh, but it is, Zixthara said. Her voice had a tone Jake couldn't identify. Was she amused, angry, planning something? I will give you a proper human-style compliment in return. Tomorrow at the morning briefing. The other aliens looked excited. This was apparently the most entertainment they'd had in weeks. Captain Foster looked worried. Sub-Commander, I don't think it is decided, Zixthara announced. Meeting adjourned. As the aliens filed out, Jake stood there feeling doomed. He had wanted to make a good first impression. Instead, he had accidentally proposed marriage, challenged someone to combat, and possibly started an interspecies incident. And tomorrow, Zixithara was going to give him a compliment back. Jake had a feeling it wasn't going to go well for him. Jake didn't sleep well that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Zixithara's orange eyes staring at him. He kept thinking about her words. I will give you a proper human-style compliment in return. The way she said it made him nervous. Very nervous. He got up early and went to the station cafeteria. The food dispenser offered him something called Earth-style protein cubes. They tasted like cardboard, but at least they were familiar cardboard. Dr. Lisa Carter sat down across from him. She was the chief xenobiologist on the station. Jake had met her briefly the day before. "Rough first day?" she asked. "You heard about it?" "Everyone heard about it. Word travels fast on a space station." Lisa stirred her coffee. "You know, in 30 years of studying alien cultures, I've never seen anything quite like yesterday." Jake groaned. "I really messed up, didn't I?" "Actually, that's the interesting part. You might have done something amazing." "Amazing? I accidentally proposed marriage to an 8-foot-tall alien warrior," Lisa laughed. "You also got the attention of every species on this station. They're all talking about human social customs now. Some of them want to study our culture more closely." "Great. I'm a scientific curiosity." "Could be worse. The Corvan Empire has requested detailed files on human complement protocols. They think it might be useful in their diplomatic negotiations." Jake pushed his protein cubes around his plate. "What do you think Zixathara is planning?" "I honestly don't know. Valkyrians are usually very direct, they don't do subtle. But she spent all night in the cultural database section. My assistant saw her there at 3 in the morning, still reading." "Reading? What?" "Everything. Human poetry, comedy shows, social interaction guides, dating manuals, even old Earth movies." Jake felt his stomach twist. "Dating manuals? Oh no." "The good news is that Ryan Torres is going to be there too." "Ryan?" "Communications Officer Torres. He's an expert in interspecies linguistics. If things go badly, he can help translate." That didn't make Jake feel better. They finished breakfast in worried silence. Then it was time for the morning briefing. Jake walked into the conference room feeling like he was going to his execution. All the aliens were already there. They seemed excited. The Corlin delegates were chittering more than usual. The crystal beings were chiming in harmony. Even Commander Zack looked interested, which was unusual for a Corvan. Zixathara sat in her usual spot. She looked calm. Too calm. Captain Foster started the briefing with routine station reports. Something about supply deliveries and maintenance schedules. Jake couldn't focus. He kept glancing at Zixathara. She sat perfectly still, her forearms folded, listening to every word. Finally, Captain Foster finished the official business. "Are there any other matters to discuss?" Zixathara raised one of her hands. "Yes, I have a cultural exchange announcement." The room went quiet. Jake felt everyone looking at him. "Yesterday, Commander Mitchell initiated a human social bonding ritual with me. I have spent considerable time studying human customs. I am now prepared to respond in the appropriate manner." Jake's mouth went dry. "Zixathara, you really don't need to." "Silence," she said, but not angrily. Almost playfully. "I have learned much about human roasting protocols." "Roasting?" Ryan Torres looked confused. "Like cooking?" "No," Zixathara said. "Like verbal combat. Humans engage in friendly insult exchanges as a form of social bonding." "This is correct, yes?" Jake suddenly realized what was about to happen. "Oh no. I have studied your Earth comedians, your social media, your film entertainment. I understand now how humans give compliments." Zixathara stood up, all 8 feet of her. "Commander Mitchell, you wished to comment on my physical attributes. Now I shall comment on yours." The other aliens leaned forward. This was clearly the best entertainment they'd had in months. Zixathara cleared her throat. "Commander Jake Mitchell, after careful study of human customs, I offer you this response. To your compliment." She paused dramatically. Jake braced himself. "Your attempts at interspecies communication remind me of a plasma torch trying to perform microsurgery. Very energetic, completely inappropriate, and likely to cause explosions." A few aliens made sounds that might have been laughter, but Zixathara wasn't done. "Your understanding of alien anatomy is like a blind cavefish trying to appreciate a sunset. Enthusiastic, but fundamentally lacking the necessary equipment. More alien sounds, definitely laughter this time. Your fashion sense suggests that your species evolved from creatures who dress themselves in the dark, underwater, while being chased by predators." The Corlin delegates were chittering uncontrollably now. Your hair appears to have been styled by someone who learned grooming techniques from studying explosion patterns. Even Commander Zack was making amused hissing sounds. And finally, Zixthera said, her voice getting stronger, your pickup lines have all the subtle charm of a meteor impact, impressive in their destruction, visible from great distances, and likely to leave everything around them in ruins. The room erupted. The crystal beings chimed like bells. The Zephyrian captain's gas form swirled in what might have been laughter. Ambassador Queel's giant head bobbed up and down. Even Captain Foster was trying not to smile. Jake sat there, stunned. It was the most complete and thorough roasting he'd ever received. And it was brilliant. Zixthara had somehow managed to insult his intelligence, his appearance, his social skills, and his personality, all while demonstrating a perfect understanding of human humor. Every insult was clever, well-crafted, and absolutely devastating. The room slowly went quiet. Everyone was watching Jake, waiting to see how he would react. Jake looked up at Zixthera. She was watching him with those bright orange eyes. Waiting. Then Jake started to laugh. It started as a chuckle. Then it grew. Soon he was laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Tears ran down his face. He gasped between laughs. That was absolutely brilliant. You completely destroyed me. That was amazing. The other aliens looked confused. They had expected anger or embarrassment or some kind of human emotional breakdown. They hadn't expected appreciation. You are not offended? Zixthara asked. She sounded genuinely surprised. Offended? That was the best roasting I've ever heard. You studied human humor for one night and came up with something better than most professional comedians. Jake wiped his eyes. I'm impressed, and thoroughly schooled. Zixthara tilted her head. Schooled? It means you taught me a lesson. A very effective lesson about not making inappropriate comments. But you are pleased with this lesson? I'm amazed by it. You turned my stupid mistake into something brilliant. I have to respect that. The room was quiet again, but this was a different kind of quiet. It was curious, interested quiet. Ambassador Queel leaned forward. Fascinating. The human appreciates being verbally defeated. It's called good sportsmanship, Jake explained. When someone does something better than you, especially when they're teaching you a lesson, the right response is to admit it and appreciate their skill. Zixthara's forearms uncrossed. This is unexpected. Most aliens would be angry or confused if roasted like that, Captain Foster added. Humans are different. Very different, Zixthara said. She was looking at Jake with what might have been respect. Your species has interesting responses to social defeat. Jake grinned. We're full of surprises. That was an excellent comeback, by the way. Mind if I use some of those lines sometime? For the first time since he'd met her, Zixthara's expression changed. The corners of her mouth turned up slightly. She was smiling. Word about the roasting incident spread through Harmony Station faster than a computer virus. By lunchtime, Jake couldn't walk down a corridor without aliens stopping to stare at him. Some of them made sounds that might have been laughter. Others just watched him with curious eyes. Jake found Zixthara in the station library. She was reading something on a data pad. When she saw him coming, she looked up. Commander Mitchell, how may I assist you? I wanted to thank you, Jake said, and apologize again for yesterday. Thank me? Jake sat down across from her. The chair was designed for humans, so he was much lower than she was. That comeback this morning was incredible. You learned humor in one night better than some humans learn it in years. Zixthara set down her data pad. I studied 347 examples of human comedic exchanges. I analyzed speech patterns, timing, and cultural references. It was intellectually stimulating. What? Did you think of human humor? Complex. Your species uses verbal combat as social bonding. This is unusual. Most species use verbal combat for actual combat. Jake laughed. We're weird that way. We like to argue and insult each other for fun. I observed this in your entertainment programs. Humans seem to enjoy being challenged intellectually even when losing. It keeps us sharp. Plus, there's something satisfying about recognizing a really good burn, even when it's aimed at you. Zixathera leaned forward slightly. Burn? Slang, for a good insult, like what you did to me this morning. Ah, yes, that was quite effective. There was something that might have been pride in her voice. Other aliens had started gathering around them. Not close enough to interrupt, but close enough to listen. Jake noticed Ambassador Queel at a nearby table, pretending to read but obviously eavesdropping with his telepathic abilities. Can I ask you something? Jake said. Proceed. How did you know I wasn't trying to insult you yesterday? Most species would have assumed the worst. Zixthera thought for a moment. Your body language, your scent, your facial expressions, they all indicated confusion and regret, not aggression or mockery. Also, Ambassador Queel confirmed your intentions were benign. Thanks for not challenging me to combat. That would have been impractical. You are clearly not trained for Valkyrian combat protocols. It would have ended poorly for you. Jake grinned. Gee, thanks for the confidence boost. I speak only truth. However, your verbal resilience is impressive. Most beings cannot recover from comprehensive social defeat so quickly. We humans bounce back pretty well. It's one of our better traits. Captain Yellow drifted over to their table. Her purple gas form shimmered as she spoke. Forgive the intrusion, but the Zephyrian fleet is quite interested in this exchange. We have never observed interspecies humor protocols before. Soon they were surrounded by curious aliens. The Corlin delegates chittered questions about human social hierarchies. The crystal beings wanted to know if humor served a biological function. Commander Zack asked about the military applications of verbal combat. It's not military, Jake explained. It's just social. We use humor to bond with each other, to deal with stress, to show intelligence. But the aggression patterns, Commander Zack insisted. The verbal attacks, surely these serve territorial purposes. Actually, they're usually signs of friendship, Jake said. The better friends we are with someone, the more we're allowed to make fun of them. This caused a lot of excited chittering and chiming from the assembled aliens. Fascinating, Ambassador, Queel said. So yesterday, when you complimented Sub-Commander Zixathara, you were attempting to initiate friendship protocols? In a really clumsy way, yes. And this morning, when she insulted you comprehensively, she was responding with friendship protocols? Jake looked at Zixthera. Were you? I was responding with appropriate human social customs, she said carefully. Whether this constitutes friendship protocols requires further study. Well, I'd be honored to be your friend, Jake said. You've got better verbal skills than most humans I know. This friendship would be acceptable, Zixthera said. You show proper appreciation for intellectual superiority. The aliens around them made various sounds of approval and interest. Over the following days, something unexpected happened. The incident became a bridge between species instead of a barrier. Aliens started approaching Jake to ask about human customs. They wanted to understand how humans could turn potential conflict into social bonding. Zixthera became the station's unofficial expert on human humor. She studied comedy shows, analyzed joke structures, and practiced timing. Soon she was making other aliens laugh with her increasingly sophisticated understanding of wit and sarcasm. Your species is remarkable, she told Jake one evening. They were having dinner in the station cafeteria. Well, Jake was having dinner. Zixathera was consuming some kind of nutrient paste that glowed blue. How so? Most species respond to social challenge with aggression, submission, or confusion. Humans respond with appreciation and humor. This suggests advanced social evolution. Or we're just too stubborn to admit defeat. Perhaps both. Zixthara made a sound that might have been laughter. I have been studying more human customs. Tell me, is it true that humans engage in roast battles for entertainment? Oh yeah. Professional comedians compete to see who can come up with the best insults. It's considered an art form. Art form, Zixthera repeated thoughtfully. Yes, I can see the artistic merit in well-crafted verbal destruction. Captain Foster stopped by their table. Jake, I just got word from Earth Command. They're very interested in your diplomatic innovation. Diplomatic innovation? Using humor to diffuse interspecies tension. It's being studied as a new protocol for first contact situations. Jake almost choked on his protein cubes. They want to use my screw-up as official policy? Apparently, the ability to laugh at yourself and appreciate others' wit is seen as a uniquely human trait that could be valuable in diplomacy. The galaxy is a strange place, Jake muttered. Indeed, Zixthera agreed. But perhaps that is what makes it interesting. Later that evening, Jake found a message waiting in his quarters. It was from the Corlin delegation. They had written him a poem. It was about friendship and laughter and learning from mistakes. The translation was rough, but the sentiment was clear. The crystal beings had composed a harmony for him. When he played it, the sounds were beautiful and somehow made him think of laughter turned into music. Even the Zephyrians had sent him something, a scent pattern that their computer translated as appreciation for the human who shows that words can build bridges. Jake realized that his embarrassing mistake had somehow become the best thing that had happened to interspecies relations in years. He decided to go thank Zixthera again. He found her in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Enjoying the view, he asked. Contemplating humor theory, she replied. I believe I am beginning to understand why humans find intellectual defeat amusing. Oh, really? Why's that? Because it means there is always something new to learn, always a way to improve. Defeat becomes opportunity. Jake smiled. That's very wise. I learned it from studying human responses to embarrassment. She looked at him with those bright orange eyes. Your species turns weakness into strength through laughter. I never thought of it that way. Perhaps that is why it works so well. They stood together looking out at the stars while the station hummed quietly around them. Jake realized that his worst diplomatic disaster had somehow become his greatest success, and it was all because Zixthera had learned to roast him better than he'd ever been roasted before. 3 weeks after the Great Roasting Incident, as it had come to be known throughout the station, Jake walked into the conference room to find something unexpected. All the aliens were there, but they weren't sitting in their usual formal positions. Instead, they were arranged in a circle, and they were all making sounds that could only be described as laughter. What's going on? Jake asked Captain Foster. Roast session, she said with a grin. Zixthera's idea, every Tuesday at 1400 hours, interspecies humor practice. Jake watched in amazement as Commander Zack attempted to insult one of the Corlin delegates. Your fur looks like a cleaning apparatus that has seen too much duty. The Corlin chittered happily and responded, Your scales shine like the bottom of a food preparation vessel. It was terrible, but everyone seemed to be having fun. Commander Mitchell, Zixthera called out. Please join us. I am teaching proper insult construction to our colleagues. Jake sat down in the circle. How's it going? Slowly, Zixthera admitted. Most species lack the proper framework for appreciating verbal combat. But they are learning. Ambassador Queel leaned forward. I have been practicing. Jake, your head is so large it requires its own gravitational field. That's actually not bad, Jake said. Except my head is pretty normal-sized. Accuracy is less important than creativity, Zixthera explained. I have been teaching them the human principle of comedic exaggeration. Captain Yellow's gas. Form swirled excitedly. My turn. Jake, you smell like a chemical processing facility. I shower regularly. But thanks for trying. The Zephyrians were still working on the concept of physical appearance jokes, since they had no solid form themselves. One of the crystal beings chimed up. Jake, your harmonic resonance is as pleasant as grinding metal. That one actually hurt. A little. Jake laughed. The sessions had become incredibly popular. Word had spread to other species throughout the sector. Jake had been told that 3 different civilizations had requested copies of the Harmony Station humor protocols. After the session ended, Jake found himself walking with Zixathera toward the diplomatic quarters. "I received an interesting message today," she said. "Oh?" "The Valkyrian Defense Corps has requested that I write a report on human social customs, specifically on the tactical advantages of humor in diplomacy." Tactical advantages? Humor disarms aggression. It builds unexpected alliances. It allows for face-saving retreats from hostile positions. From a military perspective, it is quite useful. Jake had never thought of humor as a weapon before. "I guess we humans have been doing psychological warfare without realizing it. Perhaps. Or perhaps you have simply evolved past the need for traditional warfare." They passed a group of Corlin engineers working on a wall panel. When they saw Jake, they all waved their 4 hands and chittered something that sounded friendly. "You have become quite popular," Zixathera observed. "It's weird. I accidentally insult an alien diplomat and now I'm some kind of station celebrity." "You did more than insult me. You showed an entire station full of beings that mistakes can become opportunities. That defeat can become friendship. That embarrassment can become education." They reached Jake's quarters. Before he went inside, Zixathera stopped him. "I have something for you," she said. She handed him a data pad. On the screen was an official document with lots of fancy symbols and seals. "What is this?" "A formal commendation from Earth Command for advancing interspecies relations through innovative communication methods." Jake read the document. It was written in very official language, but it basically said that his accidental comment had improved diplomatic relations more than any formal protocol in the past 5 years. "I don't deserve this," Jake said. "You're the one who figured out how to turn my mistake into something positive. The commendation mentions my contributions as well. We are both recognized for the breakthrough." Jake looked at the formal language again. "Listen to this. The Mitchell-Zixathera exchange has been designated as a model for future interspecies first contact protocols. They named it after us. Appropriate. We both participated in its creation." Jake shook his head. "From now on, when humans meet new alien species, they're going to be taught to make jokes and see how the aliens respond?" "Not exactly. They will be taught to observe how different species handle social mistakes and to respond with humor and humility when appropriate." Zixathera's orange eyes seemed amused. "Your specific approach is not recommended for general use." "Probably wise." That evening, Jake found himself back in the observation deck. It had become his favorite place to think. The stars looked the same as always, but somehow the universe felt different now, more connected. Zixathera joined him as she often did now. "Contemplating your fame?" she asked. "Contemplating how weird my life has become. A month ago, I was just another military officer. Now I'm apparently a diplomat who specializes in interspecies humor. Life often takes unexpected directions. What about you? Any regrets about being stuck with the human who comments on alien butts?" Zixathera made that sound that was her version of laughter. "I have learned much from our association. Human social customs are far more complex than I initially calculated. We're a complicated species. Indeed, but also a resilient one. And now, thanks to our exchange, other species are beginning to appreciate this resilience." They stood quietly, for a while, watching ships come and go from the station. Finally, Jake had to ask the question that had been bothering him. "Zixathera, can I try another compliment? A better one this time?" She turned to look at him. "Proceed with caution, Commander Mitchell." Jake took a deep breath. "You have the sharpest analytical mind I've ever encountered. You turned one night of research into a complete mastery of human humor. You're brilliant, and I'm honored to call you a friend." Zixathera considered this for a moment. "That was much more appropriate than your previous attempt." "Thank you. I've been practicing." "Good. Because I have a response prepared." "Oh no, Jake Mitchell. Your ability to learn from catastrophic social failure gives me hope for your entire species. Also, your head is still too small for the size of your mouth." Jake burst out laughing. "There's the Zixathera I know. I am still perfecting my technique." As they stood there laughing together under the alien stars, Jake realized something amazing had happened. His worst mistake had become his greatest achievement. His embarrassment had become a bridge between worlds, and somehow, a 8-foot-tall alien warrior had become one of his best friends. Later, as Jake headed back to his quarters, he passed the message board where station announcements were posted. Someone had added a new sign: Harmony Station Humor Sessions, Tuesdays 1400 hours. Learn to laugh, learn to connect, learn to build bridges with words. All species welcome. Humans especially welcome. You need the practice. It was signed, Sub-Commander, Zixthera, Valkyrian Defense Corps, and Official Station Humor Consultant. Jake smiled and headed home. Tomorrow there would be more diplomatic meetings, more interspecies challenges, more opportunities to accidentally start an incident. But now, he had backup. And if he messed up again, at least he knew Zixthara would be there to roast him properly. Some friendships were built on shared interests, others on common goals. His was built on the fact that his alien friend could insult him better than anyone else in the galaxy, and somehow, that seemed perfectly human.